Most event curators, they don't suffer from being underpaid. They don't suffer from a lack of creativity. They don't suffer from being well connected. They suffer because they don't have enough systems. When your business relies on you, one text message, one email, one missed phone call can ruin a whole month of effective event planning. So I want to help you become a seasoned veteran event producer where you have systems lead you into that win. What we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to take effort and turn it into infrastructure. We're going to teach you how to take urgency and turn it into intention. And we're going to take you from doing everything in your business to directing everything in your business, okay? So these systems, they're not optional. If you're looking to win and win consistently in 2026, right, you need to tap in. It's not an option, okay? These are the foundations that allow creativity, right, revenue, and leadership to coexist. All right, so let's get into the top 5 systems that will help you grow in 2026 to become a sold out event producer. So today on the first tip, we're going to talk about system 1, okay? And system 1 inside of the event cheat codes is your timeline system, okay? This tip is for high performing event producers that they don't want to rely on motivation. They don't want to rely on memory. They want structure, and they know that they'll win behind structure, okay? Having a timeline system, it ensures that your event follows a proven path, and it ensures that you have emotional urgency, okay? All right, let's get into the system. So the system, it helps govern how you move. The system takes an idea that you ideate into execution, and the system helps you create a clear, repeatable step so nobody on your team, including you, messes up, okay? The reason why systems like this are needed for a timeline for your event is because if your planning might feel chaotic, if your planning might be rushed, if you feel like you need to sell more tickets, right? If you're getting moved into other projects at one time, you don't need to be reactive. And if you do need to delegate your time into something else, right? You have a repeatable timeline that can help save you from being overwhelmed, okay? So we want to externalize your thinking so that you can execute without stress. So here's the problem, right? Here's the problem this solves. If you are going through missed deadlines, okay? If you know that you have a graphic deadline, or if you know you have a ticket sales deadline, if you know you have a logistical deadline, you need a timeline system that repeats the process for newcomers or those that are consistent on your team to help you get to that goal faster and more complete. The second problem, all right, rush launches, right? You're rushing to go to market. You're rushing because you're acting emotional. So you need a system titled launches, right? The launch day, how you're going to launch it, who's involved in the launch, how long the launch takes, okay? All right, you need to get very, very descriptive of how your launches look and how they're going to happen, who's going to execute them, all right? Vendor confusion, okay? You have a couple people at your actual event that are supporting your event, but they're showing up late. They're calling you saying that they can't load in because it's past the load in time, okay? They haven't paid their deposit, all right? They haven't shown up with the proper materials, right? They don't have their insurance, okay? So you don't need this chaos, right? Again, with the 4 levels of value, you want to stick to ideation and communication, right? You don't want to be in the management stage when it's game time for your event, okay? So you need to have a vendor timeline, okay? All right, and then last but not least, right? Overwhelming tasks, overwhelming miscellaneous tasks. So take a second, take a couple steps back and write down everything that you know as an event curator that's your weakness, all right? And write it down titled overwhelming miscellaneous tasks, right? And give it to someone who you trust, or sit down with yourself and make sure that you write out all the things that you made mistakes with during those overwhelming tasks, okay? That way you can hand it off to someone who's more organized than yourself, all right? So here's how you implement this stuff. Before you go into your next event, instead of doing it late, instead of rushing into your event, instead of communicating last minute, instead of you being the point of contact, you got to start 8 to 12 weeks out and have meetings about all of the timelines that I just mentioned, okay? All right, so here's what I would do. I would build one master event timeline, okay? And I would share it with my team, all right? Number 2, I would break it into phases. So we have a planning phase, we have a promotion phase, we have an execution phase, and then we have a review phase. Those 4 pillars allow you to stay more organized, right? And it allows you to stay on the offense versus the defense, all right? Number 3, I would assign ownership to each task, okay? every growing company who's taking this conversation seriously, you need at least one other person to help you organize this, okay? Right? Don't get overwhelmed and think, hey, Jahmal, I need 3 people, 4 people, or 5 people, okay? Yourself and one other person can help you take your ideation into execution, okay? And then last but not least, reuse the same timeline for each event, okay? Guys, in order for us to do 2,500 events, okay, in order for us to do 40 events in 1 month, right, we had to have one repeatable task and one repeatable event timeline that we can train one person on in a new city, or train a new person on in a current city that we wanted to host a different venue, right? So that they can learn that repeatable document. They need to master that. They need to live with that repeatable document so that it becomes a Bible to them. It becomes a manual to them. And once they learn the manual, then your systems will become predictable. And guess what? Your revenue will become predictable. Okay? All right. So the second system that you will enjoy is simple and direct, right? So this system that you're going to learn today is discussing communication and the communication management style, and turning that communication management style into a system for your event curation business, okay? All right, I got 3 words for you, family. Clarity builds trust, okay? Confusion decreases trust way faster than mistakes equate to trust, okay? So you gotta have a system that ensures clarity across the whole 9 of your event, okay? Across every relationship connected with your event. So you gotta have clear messages, clear communication, and clear step-by-step repeatable process, okay? So let me explain it for you, family. When you have a system for your communication in your event, right, everything lives and everything has a flow. If you don't have a systemized communication flow, okay, people start to look for other jobs. People start to not find your event as attractive. People start to not buy as many tickets, right? Your team starts to guess and operate on guesswork, okay? These are all things that lead to a broken funnel with your business and a broken business because it won't become predictable, all right? So this system is needed because you need a team that's growing. You need a team that is clear with communication so they can be a replication of yourself, all right? You need a team that communicates either because things are intentional, not chaotic, all right? So this communication system creates alignment, and you need alignment. And the biggest reason why you need alignment is you want to hold people inside of your team accountable for the results that you're seeking, all right? So if you're like me, right, and you've been doing this for quite some time and you want to solve problems in your market, all right, listen up to these problems where you can get answers to your communication style and your communication system, okay? So here's the problems that it solves, all right? Lost messages, okay? I can't tell you how many times, right, before we had a communication system where things got lost in the sauce, right? Things got lost in translation, right? Emails, SMS texts, right? Communication was not organized. And when communication is not organized, you're tiring your team. You're working too hard. You need an organized system where messages are only communicated for that pillar, okay? So for example, we only communicate production messages in the production group chat. We only communicate marketing messages in the marketing group chat. We only communicate ticket updates in the ticket guys, this is so clear and concise because you will win behind this, okay? So lost messages will allow you to work harder. When you have clear messages, it'll allow you to win larger, all right? All right, getting into the next problem it solves, all right? Conflicting infrastructures. All right, you don't want one team member who's supposed to be the head or the lead or accountable for production to be talking about marketing or to be talking about ticketing, okay? You want to have a delegated infrastructure and an organized infrastructure, okay? So you don't want each infrastructure to conflict, causing a lot of confusion in the communication, okay? That means, again, people are working harder, right? People aren't as concise, right? And people aren't as drawn into the ultimate goal, right? Because you're taking them away from what they're super talented in or what their actual role is within the timeline, okay? So that communication structure, it needs to be organized. It needs to have some infrastructure to it, all right? Another problem, constant follow-ups, all right? Inside, if you have the right infrastructure, right, you will be able to follow up with the right people because you won't be going through a ton of mixed messages, right? You won't be going through the event's production inside of the marketing chat, okay? So You want to be able to follow up with the right people, whether it's externally with the venue or externally with the artist or the DJ you're booking. Okay, that could be a group chat for you with the right messaging. You want to have the right follow-ups and make sure that there's a timeline with the follow-ups. So it all starts with having a communication channel for specific follow-ups. Okay, all right. And then last but not least, this is one of my favorites, right? Team frustration. Okay, guys, when you're working with venues, they're on your team as well. Right? When you're working with production managers at the venue, you're working with your photographer and videographers, they're on your team as well. Make sure you're creating the right communication channels so that you guys can win together and they can help you create a more quality product, create a more quality experience for people, right? You don't want people being frustrated because of your lack of communication, okay? So you guys got to implement this ASAP, this week. So anybody that's besides you that's involved, they need the correct communication channels, okay? All right, and here's how to implement this, all right? You're gonna implement this week, all right? You need to choose one specific platform per relationship type, all right? Number two, you need to define who belongs in that relationship type, okay? All right, I tend to use WhatsApp, but guys, you could use Discord, all right? You could use plenty of other platforms, you could use Slack, but you gotta define who belongs there. Everybody on your team doesn't belong in the specific relationship chat. Okay, all right, so you got to define the specific people that belong there. Number three, right, you got to communicate standards at once. This is really huge, all right? Where you start, you will finish, okay? However you start, you tend to finish. So you want to start with expectations and standards of your team to develop quality, right? To develop excellence. So you want to start with communication as excellence and communication as quality, but you got to communicate it, okay? All right, and then last but not least, you got to enforce consistency. Right, you have to enforce consistency in these channels, right? If you don't, right, people will think it's okay to jump in other channels or communicate other important things outside of the channels. So consistency also means ensuring that you are keeping the core messages inside of these relationship channels, all right? System number three, decision and delegation system, all right? Leadership is not control. Leadership doesn't mean that you do everything, right? That's the quickest way to working harder, and working harder only equates to you working hard. It doesn't equate to you winning more, selling more tickets, becoming a successful event producer, okay? All right, so you guys have to know that growth requires trust. You have to set up these systems so that you can show someone else you trust them, okay? And this system today right here, it requires you to trust other people, but remove yourself as the bottleneck, as the core person, as the go-to, right? And it allows you to lead, right? Instead of you operating off of guesswork, instead of you burning out, okay? And it allows you to set really clear boundaries, all right? So let's get right into it. This decision and delegation system, this is much needed because it defines and clarifies what priorities and what tasks need your approval and what priorities and tasks don't need your approval. And that simple explanation is one of the best things that I've done in my business thus far, okay? Because everything won't need your approval. That's why you need trust, okay? All right. This system requires you to understand that everything doesn't need to wait on you, okay? Right? If you're waiting on everything to give your approval, if you're waiting on everything to get your stamp, get your email response, get your text message, you can't scale, okay? So this system protects your energy, it protects your time, your resources, right? But it increases speed, and everyone knows success loves speed. So let's talk about some of the problems it solves, okay? Guys, again, the decision and delegation system will help you remove yourself as the bottleneck and create more trust. But the problems it solves is your burnout, okay? You as the ideator, you as the leader, you as the communicator, you can't afford to be burnt out, right? And if you're telling your team and signaling to your team that they need to talk to you before every email outreach goes out, right? Before every ad campaign goes out, okay? You are going to move based on emotion. You're going to move based on when you feel like it, your health. You're going to move based on how you feel, okay? And those aren't the metrics for success, okay? The metrics for success are repeatability, predictability, okay? And moving fast, all right? So if this problem is in your business where, right, 1 week you're tired, 1 week you're not, 2 weeks you're tired, 1 week you're not, okay? You need to learn how to set up tasks that you are okay with delegating and you're okay with other folks on your team making a decision, okay? Number 2, this is another problem that this system will solve. Decision fatigue, okay? Lots of CEOs, lots of entrepreneurs have to make the right decisions, but they can't focus on thinking about smaller critical decisions all day, okay? They have to focus on collaboration and they have to focus on working out of the business, okay? If they focus on working in the business so much, the business is going to slow down, right? And that's not what you need, all right? So we want to be here to solve that problem. And then the last one is delayed execution, okay? Executors execute fast. High-level executors, those that are focused on serving more people, all right, creating more resource, creating more community, and creating more money for their brand, right? They don't want to execute slow, right? They want to execute fast. So it's very, very important that they're delegating and having other people make decisions on a high level, all right? So here's when you need to implement this, family, all right? You need to implement this when approvals slow your momentum, okay? All right? You need to implement this so that you can expand your team and you can grow outside of you answering texts, emails, phone calls all day, okay? That won't make you more productive, all right? So here are 4 things on how I'm going to suggest that you start, not tomorrow, but today, all right? Number 1, you got to list recurring decisions, okay? All right, in your weekly meetings, go over all the reoccurring decisions that happened last week or the week after, okay? And list those reoccurring decisions out, right? And notate what decisions need you or what decisions don't need you. That way, on the upcoming weeks when the decision reoccurring activity comes back, okay, you've already coached that person on how to respond, what the brand tonality is, and how fast to respond, okay? All right, like the level of importance to respond, all right? Number 2, categorize them by authority level, okay? It's really, really important to categorize these systems and tasks by authority level because you want to know what to spend more time with, right? What to be careful with, right? You want to know, all right, what do I need to bring the team and what can I handle fast to move the needle closer to more ticket sales, right? More VIP tickets sold or more venues booked, okay? So you got to determine the authority level within each task, okay? Number 3, you got to share expectations super clear, right? When you're delegating decisions, right, it's very important that it comes off, the response comes off like it's your brand, right? Not like it's a specific person working for you on your team, okay? So that's why it's very, very clear to set expectations in advance on brand tonality, okay? On how you want your subject style to be, okay? How you want the primary goal to be listed inside of your conversations, okay? Your tonality, okay? So that's super, super important. And number 4, all right, you gotta revisit trust as much as possible, okay? You gotta revisit trust. This just means, okay, letting people know around you how much you care about them, or letting people know around you how well of a job they're doing, okay? Also letting people know around you, right, what is a grow or what is a glow, okay? What they need to work on, but also what they're killing it at, okay? So this established trust and it established credibility, and everyone likes a pat on their back, okay? All right, system number 4, event marketing and campaign systems, okay? In this system, we're going to dive into how important a system is for ticket sales. A system is for the marketing to land your ticket sales. And very important to remind you, ticket sales should not depend on luck, right? They should not depend on emotion or last minute urgency, okay? You won't sell more tickets if you have more money than the competitor. You won't sell more tickets if you have a better DJ, okay? You're gonna sell more tickets if you have a predictable system that creates its own momentum. You're gonna sell more tickets if you can influx the supply and demand, right? You're gonna sell more tickets if you have, right, a timeline that talks to the people and messages the people as they evolve inside of your campaign. But all this needs to be broken down and written into a system, right? A system that no matter if you have an assistant, no matter if you have a helper or a volunteer, someone can follow this marketing and ticketing system to help you scale out and sell out more events, okay? So let's get into the defined explanation, all right? This system will help you govern more events. It'll help you announce more events faster. It'll help you promote more events more clear with better messaging, okay? And it'll help you sell out more events, right? So that you can repeat the process over faster and faster, okay? Without a flow, marketing can become like a burnout system. It can become inconsistent and emotional, okay? It could leave you thinking and wondering, right? Is your brand good enough? Okay, is your team good enough? Is the concept good enough? But 9 times out of 10, it's not the brand or the theme or the people involved, okay? It's the campaign system that failed you because you didn't have one or you had a half-assed one, all right? You need a system that ensures that every event, it launches without interruption, okay? It launches with intention, all right? So you gotta focus on solving these problems. Problem number 1, weak promotion, all right? Make sure that your system defines a marketing mix. Make sure that your system does not sell only to the people. It creates awareness first, then engagement, and then it converts those people who were aware and that were engaged, okay? All right, so you can't have a weak promotion strategy, all right? Also, you need to write down a system for maybe a waitlist strategy, okay, where you get folks to sign up super early for bonuses, for early access, and you signal to them before you ask them to buy. You signal to them in appreciation. You signal to them and say, hey, look, we're gonna spend a lot more time with you because you signed up early, right? You're gonna get access to the VIP, you're gonna access to the rooftop, you're gonna access to all of the events that we have, private or public, all right? And we're gonna announce the events a lot more earlier, okay? So guys, the name of the game here is to make sure that you don't have weak promotion. You have a variety of promotion, but that promotion needs to be written down as an SOP, all right? And then number 3, unpredictable ticket sales, okay? You cannot afford to have unpredictable ticket sales, all right? Find out through A/B testing, through micro events, what works for your brand and what works for you to be able to repeat it, right? And dive into that, grow that concept, right? Grow that process, okay? Don't try to attack different audience, have multiple themes until you figure out with your one concept how to sell more tickets and how to repeat it as much as possible, all right? If you're looking to run a event production company where you're operating as a seasoned event producer, okay, instead of a beginner, you want to focus more on revenue generating activities, okay? So you want to solve the problem on you having better ideas, right? You working on your communication with your messaging and you creating systems with those, okay? You creating a process where people listen to you and people are able to support that idea and that communication, all right? So you got to make sure you solve those 3 problems: weak promotion, ticket sales, and revenue. Here's where you want to implement those steps so to make sure that your problems are solved and they're clear and they never come back, all right? The first step and the most important step, okay, before tickets go live, right? You want to operate in a window ideally 6 to 8 weeks before the event, or at a minimum 4 to 6 weeks before the event, okay? I live, eat, sleep, and breathe by those 2 timelines, okay? Again, family, I live, eat, sleep, and breathe by those 2 timelines based on the capacity, 6 to 8 weeks out or 4 to 6 weeks out, okay? And here's how you want to implement this system. You want to define your campaign phases, right? You want to define where your ticketing is going to start, right? How you're going to start your awareness campaign, where it's going to, what type of messages you're going to have, right? What type of countdowns you're going to have, right? And you want to define that within your systems of your marketing and your ticket sales, right? Number 2, assign messages into each different goal phase, okay? So you want to assign different messaging goals to your team to let them know, hey, with this phase, all right, with this phase of our marketing, we want to do it like this. With this phase of our ticket sales, we want to actually implement more money, or we want to implement flyers and videos, okay? So within those 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, you need to detail the process down on within each week, am I having new content rolling out? Or within each week, for example, are you going to change the captions and change the headlines? Okay, within each week, what are you doing differently for your ticketing and marketing to be sure that you're pivoting the right way, okay? And number 3, you want to save the flow, right? Once you find one flow, that's why it's very important if you're starting off, okay, or if you're in an inconsistent phase, right? Focus on hosting some smaller micro events where they're either free or they're at a very, very nominal rate where you can learn your processes, okay? Where you can write down your processes and make them repeatable and predictable, okay? Right? Once that's done with this ticketing and marketing system, you want to write down this flow. You want to save this flow so you know between 4 and 6 weeks out, every week I change my ticketing this way, okay? Every week I roll out my different ticket tiers a different way, okay? All right, and number 4, you want to optimize after each event. You want to sit down and figure out how to communicate to your audience, but also you want to figure out what were the top 3 steps that I can improve, and then I can write down an approval, right? I can write down how to improve. I can write down the new steps to get to a faster process of selling more tickets and having a smoother marketing process, okay? That's called optimizing from the current results, right? All you want to do is look at the data. How fast was I sending emails, okay? What was my email rate? What was my click-through rate? What was my return on ad spend, okay? All right, you want to look at your analytics on Facebook and Instagram and see, hey, look, did more men purchase on this week? Did more women purchase on this week? Overall, are more women purchasing than men? Okay, you got to make sure you're looking at the ticketing and marketing channels and optimizing based on the data, and then you'll continue to win. So this family recaps the event marketing and ticket campaign flow for you to create a system that relies on predictability. Right? Not last minute urgency. It relies on a system that will help you get paid and help you create more events. System number 5, post-event review. Okay, a lot of you guys are doing events and just rushing into the next event, right? You're not taking the time to learn your growth skill and to learn and reflect on what happened, why it happened, and how to learn from that situation, okay? So this system is going to prioritize how to review your event after your event ends, okay? All right, improvement has to be intentional, okay? This system, again, it creates reflection as a growth skill, okay? This system ensures that every event becomes a stepping stone, not a reset, okay? And we want to make sure that you're capturing the lesson, right? And you're capturing the conversion and making sure you turn that into a process, okay? Again, family, you gotta capture the lesson as in, why did I not sell enough tickets, okay? Why did the results become at 80% of the ticket sales, okay? Why did we have people pay for VIP and not show up, okay? Why did I have 3 vendors not show up or show up late? Without review, right, you might repeat these mistakes, okay? Without review, you could stall your growth. Without review, you could lose money and lose resources, okay? So you wanna focus on solving these problems, right? You can't deserve repeatable errors, okay, family? You don't want you to have a plateau with your results where you have stagnated results, okay? You want to solve that problem, right? And you don't want to miss the proper insight that can help take your event from a 0 to a hero in your market, okay? That's why you need to sit down and capture the lesson, all right? Okay, that's why this is titled post-event review. You gotta document or journal, right? Everything that happened, good or bad, to make sure that you are not repeating errors, right? You're not having stagnated results, and you're not just missing, right, that key element, that small tweak that you need to make, right, where all of your ticket sales came from, okay, to keep growing, to keep scaling, all right? So here's how you implement this, and I want you guys to start today, all right? Within 48 to 72 hours after each event, you have to go ahead and capture your lesson, okay? All right, no matter if you sit down with AI or you sit down with yourself with a notepad, okay? You want to document every single win and every single challenge, okay? And if I were you, I would spend more time on the challenging section, okay? All right, guys, we understand you already have charisma, you got results, right? You have a little bit of strategy, but you want to keep focusing on the things that you're avoiding to get to the next level, okay? So again, document your wins and challenges, right? And make a longer list for challenges, all right? Number 2, review your data and your feedback. You have to be sending surveys to your folks, your audience, asking them what do they like. Don't be afraid to give some tickets away. Don't be afraid to give something of value away, all right? Don't be afraid to ask people at the event as they check out, okay, for a small bit of feedback, whether it's on video or off camera, okay? You need that feedback to get to the next level. Number 3, identity and improvement. Make sure you're focusing on your brand identity, all right? Is your brand messaging the same online as it is at your event, okay? Do you have things that reflect your brand as far as merch, right? Is the venue representing your brand the way you want to be represented, okay? That goes over a lot of event producers' heads, where it allows them to still stay stuck as a one-off event producer, okay? And we know that you deserve to run a brand as an event curator, all right? Here's the bonus of the day, family. You need to make sure that your events are printing money. You need to make sure that your events are not do-overs. You need to make sure that your events are not a dead end, okay? Your events are like an ecosystem. They're an entry point to your community, all right? And over 85% of people who come to the event, if it's not advertised correctly, they won't come back. There ain't no do-overs, right? So I want to help you with a short and sweet system that creates more revenue, right? So you can stay in business as long as you want, right? So you can keep impacting more people and creating more community, all right? So this system helps connect events to long-term income pathways, all right? And this system is needed because you always need a strategy, okay? Without a back-end strategy, your revenues are too inconsistent, okay? And that's not a real business, okay? The problem this solves is that you don't want a feast or famine cycle where you have inconsistency. You don't want financial instability, and then the external doesn't trust you, and then your internal team doesn't trust you, and you end up winging things and doing things out of urgency for money, okay? You want to do things out of urgency of solving other people's problems, so you create experiences, okay? So here's how you implement it, okay? You gotta implement your revenue system once demand is proven, okay? All right, before scaling, you have to host a ton of events. Iteration is key in figuring out inside of that iteration, okay, what systems, what tickets people love to buy, and making a repeatable process to add more tickets and changing the names of those tickets, right? Changing the way you communicate about those tickets, okay? So again, guys, the biggest way to implement this is to increase the demand, okay, right? You have to increase the demand. So you might want to limit the supply, okay? You might want to signal that you have a limited supply, all right? You might want to signal that your events will hit capacity. You might want to signal that you only have a small amount of tickets, and this is the capacity of the event. This is the capacity of the VIP area, okay? You have to do all of this before calling this a system and calling this a scaled tactic, all right? So the way you implement this is you have to define all your core upsells. You have to define the sweet spot in your ticket sales, okay? You have to get out of the mindset that everyone's going to RSVP, all right? So you have to create value and then create upsell offers for your tickets that have value. Create early bird specials that have an experience attached to them. Create flash sales that only last so long but still give more value instead of decreasing the value, okay? The next thing you want to do is you want to map out the pathway to success for this metric, okay? You want to map out the pathway for success for making more money, all right? If you map out exactly how I made more money from these last 3 events, okay, you're going to be able to grow. You're going to be able to grow your strategy and refine your strategy, okay? So it needs a week by week detailed strategy session on what needs to be implemented to make more money in your business, okay? That might look like, hey, look, we need this amount of vendors on week 4 promotion. That might mean like, hey, look, instead of doing digital marketing on this week of promotion, we usually do a little bit of radio, or we do a little bit of hand-to-hand, or we do different types of marketing to get people involved. We do only SMS on this week, okay? So you have to map out your marketing channels that give you the best bang for your buck as you're getting closer and closer and closer to your event, all right? All right. If you don't map this out, you'll continue to keep winging it, all right? You don't want to do that, all right? Number 3, you want to track conversions. You want to track exactly where the ticket sales are coming from, right? And you want to do this inside the ad manager, or you want to do this based on your CRM, okay? So you want to track how many tickets are sold week by week between your 4 to 6 week range of your campaign or your 6 to 8 week range of your campaign. Tracking your conversions will lead to you understanding where you need to press the gas pedal and spend more money, where you need to pull back, okay, and hire more people, right? Where you need to decrease the capacity of the event, okay? You guys just need to make a metric to track your conversions week by week, okay? Then last but not least, right, just refine this over time, right? Give yourself, right, for your primary events, give yourself enough lead time, right, to execute this, or give yourself enough time to host micro events before you go host a major event. Micro events with the event cheat codes are 50 to 75 people, and the goal is to build a brand. The goal is to dive into more engagement, okay? So that refines how you are going to create a revenue generating system so that you can track conversions, right? So that your events are not a dead end, it's an entry point. It's almost like an ecosystem where you're gonna have people that are warm inside of your ecosystem to continue to buy from your events. All right, so that's a wrap, family. We went over systems over hustle. You can't keep relying on text messages, emails, and responding to everything. So you deserve these systems to take things from the guesswork or the burnout to the intentionality and the sellout. If you like this type of content, right, if this content helped you grow with your mindset and your execution, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. And I would love to see you on another side of your next sold out event. Peace.